Basically, what he had to do was to cover his downside because he didn't want to look like Obama. He wants to get out of the Middle East. He reprimanded Netanyahu.
And it's a big message to North Korea coming up ahead of these deals.
Now you got it. This was not about Russia. That's where your guests were completely wrong. I don't know them. I have no idea who they are. The real message was to North Korea. This was his way of saying, look, guys, I'm in the business of creating peace, but if in fact there is any problem whatsoever and you don't really want to test me out, let me show you what I can do. And by the way, this is Mattis's theory as well. Talk is not the most effective way to deliver a message.
Yeah, what it's saying is, okay, now I get the scripting, if this was what's happening. Mattis says we're probably not going to strike. Trump sends out a thing saying we're going to hit you. Then he says, I didn't say that. It's to create a wild, mad dog persona. But I think that's reckless. You can do that in business and stuff, but I don't like that. I think this is going too far.
I like it, but truthfully, we've never had a president, with all due respect, Alex. You sometimes can be confusing. I can be confusing. But when I go in and do what I have to do, I'm never going to go in as the simple doctor. I have to create all kinds of illusions, distortions, deception. That's what's going on. He's not being irresponsible. You have James Mattis there, who's the Secretary of Defense, who understands very well what a limited strike or psychological warfare is about. The most important element that we have now is not the Middle East. It's not even.
No, I agree. And I take the Russians' continued restraint. I take the Russians' continued restraint as they see this as that, and about kabuki theaters, you would say, for the South China Sea. That said, still, when Trump says all this during the campaign that's so accurate about the Middle East and how we shouldn't be there, and signals that we're going to be there, I have to signal just into the general world that that's not a good idea, and that it's a betrayal of his previous statements. I have to be the person that that doesn't engage in the quantum manipulations. Do you understand? So there's a
That's why I'm on the show, Alex. I'm not against what you're saying. You hit it right on the target. I was just concerned as a friend that you got a little bit anxious, you weren't taking your own products, and that you weren't calm. What I'm trying to tell you is this is geared for North Korea. As a matter of fact, today, North Korea, Mr. Kim Jong-un has been elevated to the first family. That's amazing. So the wife is no longer a cult figure. She's the first lady. Kim Jong-un is the first president of North Korea. So what's happening?
That's a symbol that they're now buying into U.S. propaganda in that whole orbit and preparing to have a whole new phase with merging with South Korea.
Correct. Now you got it. Whether they merge with South Korea, that's one limitation, because having been involved with the merger of East Germany and West Germany, we learned a very important lesson. Let me tell you what that is. East Germany, we didn't calculate how much money had to be poured into East Germany in order to maintain a certain standard of living. And when they were melded together, it was an incredible drain on West Germany. That is also the problem with South Korea. South Korea uses North Korea as basically the cheap labor unit.
Well, sure, but let's go further than that. It then supplied all the weird communist ideology and bureaucracy to West Germany that's helped them become more socialist. And so they picked up a lot of the communist disease from that. We'll be back in 2 minutes to continue this discussion then and ask where this is going. I agree with your analysis. I still back Trump. I just flipped out on Friday because I have a lot of other stresses as well. God's got the chemical weapons, so now the rebels stage more. We've got to go to war. That's the problem with the calculus of this whole thing. And, of course, I knew the answer from the beginning, but I fundamentally at a gut level got angry about it, so I went wild Friday. Because my gut doesn't like it, and my gut's never wrong. Now, my gut still tells me, I saw Trump in there giving a speech earlier about tax cuts, and I went, oh, I like the tax cuts. Oh, I like the good Supreme Court justice. Oh, I like the globalist hating him. Oh, I like getting out of the TPP and all the new jobs. And, oh, boy, I like Trump. Okay, so I still like Trump, which means I'll get persecuted. It'd be so easy to turn against him, and the whole world would love me, and I'd be on Bill Maher and be a soulless person. So a lot of it is how much I've been persecuted for supporting Trump. Built up, not angry at Trump, just angry at all the dumb people out there that have been sucked into this civil war the country's facing culturally. And so then when he just starts to budge a little bit, it makes me get really, really upset. So people said, was that an act? We started yelling and screaming and cussing. Wasn't on the main satellite. I knew it was a live feed. I didn't say go live. I was irritated they went live. It wasn't their fault. I was like, we're going to go live in here. You're going to go live with that. And then I wasn't clear. So we thought, oh, go live now. 10 minutes before we went live in there. And then I realized it was live when I was sitting there venting, going, these damn neocons, this is crap. Then I realized I was on. He's going, yeah, you're live. So then I really start venting. And then I said, delete it. And then at the end of the day, I said, don't delete it. So you could say it was kind of staged. It didn't start out being staged. Then I thought, delete it. Then I thought, you know what? Don't delete it. Just leave it. So I don't know anymore. All I can tell you is, you know a man by his enemies, and the globalists are coming after Trump big time. The toll-free number is 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. I don't expect Trump to be perfect, okay? And I know he goes with his gut as well. I know the globalists hate him. He's done a lot of good things. It's just Pieczenik, and I want to go then to Mueller with you. I'm really worried, and Comey, I'm really worried. I get why he did it. It was all about North Korea. It's all about red lines. It was all about sending a message. It was all about killing domestic opposition. I get it. They get it, too. They're only increasing the attacks now, saying, oh, look, we got him. And, again, when the rebels launch more chemical attacks, which they'll do like night following day and day following night, now Trump has put himself in a trap. What do you say to that?
Trump isn't going to address that issue very clearly. Basically, you know, we will have what's called proportionality in terms of the psychological warfare or the political warfare. What you hit on, and nobody's really concentrating as well as you are, is the fact that Mueller's getting closer and closer and closer to taking down Trump. And that's why
I got fundamentally mad, is that I love Trump so much. I can tell they didn't get any Russians because that's fake. They got something with that lawyer. They're already leaking it, as you predicted Friday they would do, the $1.6 million for some Republican donor to a Playboy bunny to kill a baby. I mean, all this is going on. That's what I'm saying is I just sense the whole energy level went up that much danger, and that's why I got pissed.
Well, you are correct in terms of, I understand you, we understand each other. It's not an issue. You can get angry, and we talked about this for a long time, and you and I were wondering why was Mueller still around. But Mueller now has what lawyers have explained to me, which is called the Crime Fraud Exception Act, which means that he went in and went to Trump's lawyer with a warrant saying that we can look into anything now that Cohen has done. Not only Cohen.
They pierced the attorney-client privilege of the entire Trump organization.
That is the crux of the whole problem right now. He pierced it so well that I had to go to a lawyer today and yesterday and find out how was that possible to pierce the special relationship between a lawyer and his client. And
they did it showing that they say Cohen was using the office of a lawyer as a push-through thing for himself, for Republican donors as a money laundering operation, or kind of a mini Clinton Foundation. And my issue is under national security, if Trump's for the country and the globalists have committed crimes 1,000 times worse, I say we move against them. I say Trump has waited too long, and it's time to stop this.
I agreed with you months ago. You and I were saying the same, making the same statement. I don't know why Mueller was there. I don't know why Rodenstein was there. I had no idea why Comey was allowed. I mean, basically, this is the issue that's now at hand. And we're talking about a couple of months, if not weeks. When you pierce that type
within days of them raiding him, they're already illegally leaking out of the stash.
That's correct, Alex. And that's what you really responded to. The Syria issue is not a relevant issue. The North Korea issue is relevant.
It's beginning to know he may be, quote, compromised in that they've got the mother lode.
That's correct. You hit it right on the head. That is the gold of gold. And that's why I wanted to get on the show to basically say the focus has to be shifted to the Crime Fraud Exception Act, which I had to go and find out myself, because I could not understand how you can pierce that relationship between the lawyer and the client. And they say they can do it all the time if you invoke that warrant or that act, the Crime Fraud Exception Act. And apparently Bob Cohen has been highly compromised, and he may have been flipped. That is a whole other issue. But the issue of Syria, the issue of all of that is it's secondary, quite frankly. It's really Mattis had a very judicious approach to it. Trump had a very judicious approach.
But I'm just saying, Trump is clean compared to most other presidents. And the stuff is all about cleaning up stuff for Republicans and people. This is nothing. Hillary was in bed with the Chinese, the Russians, everybody. I'm sick of their crap. I want the real enemy, the globalists, removed now. They're trying to start a civil war. They're crazy. They're corrupt. They're nuts. And I think it's time for the president to act. They're doing all this extrajudicially. They're doing all this rogue. And I just don't see how we sit here and take this crap anymore.
Well, we've made that, we've made it very clear for years what we wanted. We made it very clear what the 9/11 issue was. But I got to tell you, since the very beginning, the fact that Mueller, Comey, even Gorsuch all came back from the George Bush Jr. administration, it really befuddled me. It was almost as if
Trump thought he could get what he wanted, but he thought he could get them in the fold and share power, and they'd leave him alone. No, they're dedicated to global government and dominating this country and doing the same crap. And that was Trump's fatal mistake, was trying to share power and bring them under the tent and keep his enemies closer. These people don't know any honor. They can't help it. They came from cowards. They came from scum to sell the country out. They cannot stop it.
I would agree that I think Trump made a serious mistake by trying to think that he could co-opt them. That was a very, very serious mistake, because once you bring in one of them, it kept on going on. It was like a long trail of the 9/11 false flags.
It's like metastasizing cancer. It's all one hive brain.
Well, it's there now, and he's surrounded by it. I mean, even in the domestic side, that's where he was the weakest. And he understood that, but he thought he could co-opt it. Legally, I can't get into that discussion because I really don't know as much. I had to go out and find out what this Criminal Fraud Exception Act was.
No, if the lawyer's engaged in criminal activity, and the lawyer is like a consigliere for a mafia, the attorney-client privilege is stripped under the racketeering laws.
You hit it right on the head, Alex, as usual. That's exactly what the issue is about. It is basically back to the racketeering, the RICO Act, all that.
Which is exactly what Hillary and Mueller and Comey are doing with that organized crime operation at the Justice Department, giving their wives and husbands all money for coming up with the fake poo-poos, pee-pee stuff. We're going to come back and do a little bit more on where this goes, wargaming this, how we stop this. But at a gut level, I saw Syria as a sign of him trying to appease them, as a sign of major fear. I mean, as soon as he said we're going to pull out of Syria, they raided his offices. And I just think, Trump, a decade ago, the New York Times and Washington Post, she's like been the shadow president of the country. Even when Obama was in, she probably had more power than Obama did most of the time. Those two didn't really like each other because they were two different crime networks. But you saw Obama trying to parlay himself into an Arab Spring with his cousin, Odinga, and Kenya and in the Middle East, and then trying to, it's all about individuals in the system trying to get this power for themselves by leveraging nation states into some type of global system. But the global system can't ever work because all these sharks inside of it are all trying to set up their own little personal things. So the global government can never actually even take place, which is a good thing because their global system is absolutely nightmarish. We need a global system of ideas and people working together through individualism and nation states, not a forced global government, but that's a whole other subject. We're here looking at this nightmare scenario of Mueller and Comey and just how incredibly corrupt they are and the things they've done. And I'm finishing up with Steve Pieczenik. We're going to your phone calls here in the next segment, I promise. But this is not a good sign either way you slice it. And what do you think, Steve Pieczenik, talking to your sources, what is the view of people who are patriotic in the deep state about where Trump's going and the prognosis of things and this whole thing with Michael Cohen? Because I've just seen seismic shifts in the behavior of the leftists, the globalists. They think they've got the mother lode right now, and then I wasn't sure, and then Trump flips on this. And I get the optics are good for him overall, but it's a desperate thing for Trump that doesn't even like to play tricks, in my experience. So what's the real tea leaves here in your expert view? My expert view is that if he makes a deal with North Korea, which I think he will, and it can afford him an opportunity for a Nobel Peace Prize,
there may be a chance here to save his presidency. I'm concerned that on the domestic side...
I got to interrupt you. Saturday, I thought about this for hours. I totally agree. They're going to try to sabotage this North Korea thing because they want ongoing tension and the old policy anyways. But it all rests on a North Korea deal and continuing the economy getting better and some bold moves by the Justice Department that's so compromised against the real criminal networks, which, if they're successful at bringing down Trump, we've got a real Praetorian Guard coup inside our country like a third world nation. I mean, Hillary and her stay-behind network, let me ask that question first. If they successfully remove Trump, what are they going to do next? They are going to be emboldened mad dogs.
Well, what will happen next is that Pence is in line for the presidency, and then we have to see what in fact happens. I don't want to see, I hope that he remains there, and I hope he can deal with this legal issue very quickly, because quite frankly, if I had to go to see a lawyer about this very matter, that concerned me. And for me, that was a time clock, not so much the Syrian attack or anything else on the international side, but on the domestic side, where in fact he is exceedingly vulnerable. And he, as you said, I mean, he's given an apology and a pardon to Scooter Libby. I mean, I've known about Scooter Libby for a long time. He's an Andover graduate. He's a George Bush man. Why do you have to pardon Scooter Libby if, in fact, he doesn't get something in return?
And that's because the whole deep state Bush arm is about half of the deep state globalist equation. He's going to that deep state, kissing their ass so that they'll leave him alone when they don't even have control over the whole Hillary Clinton crime network. It's not going to work. Appeasement isn't going to work.
Well, you may be right, because I didn't quite calculate. I couldn't understand why Scooter Libby was pardoned when in fact he was very much a part of the Cheney and Bush false flag and 9/11 and the Iraq
Sure.
War.
What about Eric Prince and General Jones and all them that secretly run security for Trump? That's out now. I can say it. Well, are those guys compromised, or why does he turn them loose on these people? I mean, they're already an outside globalist force here running rampant. Why doesn't the president use some of the muscle he's got?
Well, I don't know very much about Eric Prince, other than the presentation he made to a group of us in the intelligence unit about 10, 15 years ago, where he explained why he was cheaper and more effective at Blackwater, and he used the Revolutionary War as an example. And I pointed out to Eric that was not a very good example, considering we didn't have any money for the Continental Congress and the Continental Army. Also, at the same time, Eric Prince was not a very good SEAL. And
well, wait a minute. But he did set up a successful company. But, I mean, Washington didn't like the militia until later. Then in his memoirs, he had to admit the militia was critical to the win. I mean, I think guerrilla warfare, learning the French and Indian War, is a critical example that would translate. I don't want private contractors taking over the military, but I don't know.
But you're right. Honestly, you know American history better than most of us. The French Indian War was far more critical in terms of the outcome of where we came. But in terms of Prince, you know, again, that's questionable. Jones, that's a highly questionable entity as well. And in fact, whether he's co-opting him or he thinks he's in control, that's a big question.
No, but I mean, that's who runs Trump's security on top of everything with the Department of Defense. That he's left that in there from the beginning. So I'm just, that's an open secret. The Intercept reported it. I knew it during the campaign. I'm just, those guys ought to want to side with Trump over these globalists. These globalists are crazy, man.
Well, crazy.
I mean, Hillary is an insane witch demon whose expiration date's over. All these crazy Democrats that want civil war and thought the UN would come in under Loretta Lynch and take over the police departments. I mean, I always heard old-timers saying that UN was going to take over, and I didn't believe it. That's crazy. That will never fly. They will start a real civil war, and I'm sick of this crap.
Well, I don't think we're going to have a real civil war.
I'm saying if these maniac leftists that have some weird score to settle with flyover country get their way, Steve, they're going to start a physical fight. You understand? They have serious, I'm not a psychiatrist like you, but they have major deficiency issues and have a fundamental, like a baby duck, imprinted training to hate America, Christians, gun owners, and veterans. You know they won't hire any veterans to anything real because they fundamentally are pieces of crap cowards. Okay, like Brian Williams and Hillary Clinton. So what I'm saying to you is they're the real threat. And all I want to say is they will never get control of this country, ever.
Well, that's pretty well stated. The key question is, how do we maintain the stability of the republic, both financially and politically? And that's really what the biggest concern we have in our administration and in our fellowship of people who are involved in keeping the republic stable. And I don't think we're going to relinquish power that easily. And the republic remains quite intact.
No, I agree with you. But you're saying for the first time since Trump's been in a year and a half, there are some chinks in the armor right now.
Yes. The chinks are domestic as opposed to foreign. And those chinks that are domestic could be a very gaping hole. And that's what concerns me, as it does you. You hit it right on the head.
Well, here's the deal. We already have outside foreign globalist powers running rampant in the country and harassing and terrorizing and killing people. So at this point, the rules have already changed. And I think the president's in dereliction of duty. If he doesn't just gut up and move against these cowards, they will fall like a house of cards. It's time to move against the traitors. Thank you, Dr. Pieczenik. We'll be back with your phone call straight ahead.